Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video we're going to learn the 1 to 4 player game, Tenpenny Parks, designed by Nate Linhart and published by Thunderworks Games, who helped sponsor this video. The town of Fairview is looking to be re-energized, and the mayor has asked you and the other players to each build an awe-inspiring theme park. And the one who can attract the most visitors to their park will be awarded Fairview's Golden Key and also win the game. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. To set up, put the game board in the center of the play area. Then beside the board, add all of these visiting people, also known as VP tokens, and in the spot beside the money image of the board, stack the money tokens. I'm putting mine in some trays that I have, and if you'd like some of your own, you'll find links in the description. Now on this track, set this month marker into the topmost space, and on this space, we set what is known as the extra worker. Next, find the uniquely shaped attraction tiles and organize them by color beside the board as well. Then find the attraction cards. They'll have a colored banner on their face, and you separate these into decks by color. On the board, you'll find these spots known as attraction spaces. And in each one, you'll randomly add a colored attraction deck face up. For your first game, you'll have to assemble this carousel, and you'll find instructions for that in the rulebook. Now place it into the opening for it here in the board and rotate it so that the side showing this plus $2 icon is facing the deck of cards with the yellow banner. And they'll also have this symbol in their corner to help identify them. These are the expansion boards, which you'll mix into 2 equal piles, setting them beside this Realtor area of the board. By the Arborist, set all of these tree markers, and by the Contractor area, set all of these concession tiles face down. Then flip a number of them face up equal to twice the number of players. In this video, we'll assume we have 3 players. Now give this shovel token to the person who most recently rode a roller coaster. Or you can just pick someone randomly. The cards with this back are the goals, and you'll now deal 3 of them to each player. Each person will pick 2 of them to keep, and the one they didn't, along with all the rest of the unused goals, can be returned to the box. Now, you can always look at your own goals, but keep them a secret from the other players. Then, starting with the first player and going clockwise around the table, each person performs the following steps. First, they pick any one of these double-sided property boards, setting it with either side face up in front of them. All these boards have one side that is the exact same as the others, and one that is unique. From the supply, they now add a tree token to each space of their board containing this tree symbol. They then pick a player color and take the matching player reference, 3 workers, and 3 emotion discs. They then put their discs onto the first spaces of these 3 emotion tracks found at the bottom of the board. Once the first player has done all of these steps, then the next player in clockwise order performs all of those steps as well, collecting a board, putting the trees on it, getting the various items related to their colors. And when they place their emotion discs on the tracks, they stack them on top of any that were already there. Once every player has done this, each player now collects $7 from the supply. And that's the setup. In Tenpenny Parks, you'll be sending out your workers to shape and expand your landscape, filling it with concession stands and exciting rides in an effort to attract the most visitors to your park. Attract the most by the end of the game, and you win. The game is played over 5 months, or rounds, and each is divided into 5 steps, starting with the income step. From the supply, each player now takes $3 and any income represented by these icons on concession tiles or attraction cards that they've built. At the very start of the game, you won't have any of these built, but keep this in mind for later months. Now we move to the action step. Here, starting with the first player and going clockwise around and around the table, each player will take turns adding one of their workers to a space at the game board, immediately resolving the location they added their worker to. And then you'll keep taking turns like this until everyone has placed all of their workers. Now, in some cases, you might have to skip over a player if they don't have any workers left, while others do. And we'll see how that can happen a little later. So now let's take a look at all of the possible spots you can add a worker to and see how they work. One option is to place a worker on an icon of the carousel, which will then let you build an attraction. You then look at the top card of the attraction deck beside it and adjust the cost shown here by the value on the carousel space that you added your worker to. So the regular cost of this base and city scramble is $4, but we reduce it by the minus $2 here, so our final cost is $2. You then pay that amount back to the supply and collect that card from the deck. From the attractions pile that shares the color of the banner on the card you just collected, find the tile that matches the shape showing in the bottom corner with the matching name. You now add this to your property, and anytime you add a tile, you must follow certain rules. First, you must place your tile fully on your board. You can't have it hanging off the edge like this. You also can't overlap spaces with trees or other tiles that might already be on the board from a previous action. For example, if I already had this attraction here, my new one couldn't lay on top of it. Not only that, a newly added piece can't touch the side of another tile already in your park. So I couldn't add this here now because these sides are touching. However, it's okay if they touch diagonally. So this would be allowed since they're only touching on the corners. And I should mention it's okay if your tile shares a side with a tree. When you're adding an attraction, you can rotate it in any way you like and even flip it over. But once it's placed, you will not be able to move it for the rest of the game. If the tile you place covers up one of these printed icons, then you resolve that icon as well. If it shows a dollar value, collect that money from the supply. These other types of symbols represent emotions, which we haven't discussed yet, but to understand these, we'll need to quickly go back to the main board. Here at the bottom, you'll find the 3 emotion tracks. The blue one with lightning bolts represent thrills. Yellow stars represent awe, and the red hearts are joy. Anytime you cover a space showing one of these symbols, you get to advance your marker on that related track by 1 space. So if the purple player covered this thrill symbol, it means that they'd get to move their marker on the thrill track 1 space forward. If you're moving a disc from a space that contains other discs, just make sure you don't change the order of the discs that remain in the space. Later in the game, you might find yourself moving a disc into a space that already has 1 or more discs in it, and if so, you add yours on top. If you're at the end of a track and would gain the ability to move further, instead, just move your disc to the top of any other discs that are already there. Being on top of a stack means you're further ahead than the discs below you, and that will be important later, as we'll see. If you see more than 1 emotion symbol within a space, it means covering it up will allow you to advance yourself 1 space on the track for each related symbol. These symbols represent wild emotions, and for each of these that you cover, you can advance once on any emotion track of your choosing. Either way, after placing an attraction tile and gaining any benefits for spaces that you cover up, you now check this area of the attraction here to see if there are any emotion symbols, and if so, you advance your markers on the related tracks. In this case, we'd advance 1 on the yellow awe track. With any of those rewards collected, you now flip the attraction card over. You'll keep this in front of you, and at the end of the game, it'll be worth this value in VP tokens, which will help your efforts to win the game. If the attraction you just built shows a dollar symbol here instead, this is the amount of extra money that you earn during the income step of future rounds, as we discussed earlier. And that's how you resolve adding a worker to the carousel. More than 1 player can add a worker to the carousel during the action step, but no more than 1 can go into each section of it. The rest of the action spaces we're going to learn about can have any number of workers added to them by you or the other players. So let's learn about them now. Placing a worker here on the banker gives you $2 from the supply. If you go to the Arborist, you get to remove up to 2 trees from your property and return them to the supply. This can make room for the tiles you might want to add here later. After going to this Contractor, take any face-up concession tile and add it to your property, but do not replace the tile that you take. Concessions are tiles just like attractions and must follow all of the same rules, which means they can never share a side with another tile, but can touch other tiles diagonally. You also get the benefit of any symbols that they cover up, but that's not all. If the tile you add shows any emotion icons, you then advance on the related tracks. If it shows a dollar value, don't take money now, but you'll gain that during each future income step, as we mentioned earlier. Now let's look at this Realtor space. To go here, you must spend $3 as it shows, and then you take 1 expansion board from the top of either of these stacks. Now, these are double-sided, and you can examine both sides of the top tiles before taking one. With your new board collected, flip it to either side and add it to the far side of either end of your property. Then add tree markers to each space of it that shows the tree symbol. This board is now a permanent part of your property that you can add attractions and concessions to. And over the course of the game, you can buy any number of new boards for your property. Just make sure you add them to the far ends of either side. And those are all of the action spaces. And again, players will take turns in clockwise order placing workers until everyone has no workers left. Then it's time for the bonuses step. Here we check to see who is furthest ahead on each of the emotion tracks, starting with the thrill track. And remember, if more than one player is in the furthest ahead spot, the player on the top of that stack is considered to be in the lead. The lead player on the thrill track, purple in this case, may now choose to either move one space back on the track in order to collect this extra worker from wherever it is to use during next month's action step, or they can stay where they are and take one VP token from the supply and instead return the extra worker from wherever it is back to the board. When a player has the extra worker, it means they'll get to perform an extra action during the action step, which can be quite useful. The player furthest ahead on the awe track may now either move their disc one space back and take the first player shovel token, or they can instead stay where they are and gain one VP token and take the shovel from wherever it is and pass it to the player on their right. The player who's furthest along on the joy track may either move their disc backwards and collect $3, or instead stay where they are and just take one VP token. And you'll find reminders of these various rewards printed right here on the board. I should also mention, if you have a 3 or 4 player game, as we do here, each player who is second furthest on each of the emotion tracks will gain one VP token. And you evaluate who is in second before the player who's furthest ahead potentially moves their token backwards as part of collecting their reward, which could then change the positions of the discs. You'll find a reminder of the second place reward in 3 or 4 player games right here on each of the 3 tracks. All right, now we come to the advertising step of the month. This step can be done simultaneously by all the players at once, unless a player requests that these decisions be made in player order, which again starts with the person holding the first player shovel and then continues clockwise around the table. When resolving this step, you decide how many of your attractions you wish to advertise, if any, by paying the cost shown here on the attractions you've picked. You then gain the indicated number of VP tokens it shows here. Each month during this step, you can only do this once per each of your attractions. Once that's over, we then come to the cleanup step of the month. Start by returning any remaining face-up concession tiles back to the box. Then reveal a number of new tiles face-up from the supply equal to twice the number of players, just like we did during the setup. Now the players all collect their workers back from the board. With that done, the player with the shovel now rotates the carousel as much as they like, as long as it ends up in a new position from where it had been. Finally, you advance the month marker one space and start a new round. Now, if the marker was already on this final space when you would need to advance it, instead, the game is over. At that point, each player reveals their goals and gains 3 VPs for each one they've completed. You also gain VP tokens equal to the total VP showing on all of your attraction cards. You then gain another 5 VP if you have a total of 6 or 7 attractions built, or instead gain 10 VP if you have 8 or more built. You'll find a reminder of these bonuses printed here on the board. Now look at each emotion track and earn 5 points for each of your markers that landed on space 9 or higher. So purple in this example would earn 5 points for this token and another 5 points for this one. Now the players total the value of all their VP tokens, and the player with the most has attracted the most visitors to their park and wins. In the case of a tie, the tied player with the most money wins. If there's still a tie, the tied player seated closest clockwise to the player holding the shovel wins. There are also rules for solo play, which you'll find on the back of the rule book, but those I'll leave for you to discover on your own. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Tenpenny Parks. If you have any questions at all about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. And if you'd like to support us directly, you can join our Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.